Oh, my lands, here we are with another amazing episode of this show. I'm Jay Connor, your host, also known as the Private Money Authority. And here on this show is for not only real estate investors, but also for people who want to elevate their life personally, business, increase in personal development, and get better in that. And so I've got a dear friend that I met some months ago at a mastermind meeting, and I was just really, really impressed with his book that he's written and the difference that he's making in people's lives. And so his name is Steve Cook. I'm so excited to have Steve on the show with me. So with that, Steve, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Jay, for having me. And I got to tell you, that was a memorable experience when we did meet you. And I just loved you and your wife, and you were just so gracious to me and my son. And I think I have shared with you that my son, I don't think he'll ever forget that time because you made it a great experience for him and you just received him so well. And I just love people like you and your wife, and you're just such a blessing to this world. And so I'm grateful to be here.
Well, I'm grateful to have you. And any more these days when you see, and it was obvious to me and Carol Joy, it was obvious that you and your son was, he was a teenager, right? Uh,
He was 13 years old, getting ready to turn 14.
yeah. And it was obvious that you and your son had a very, very special relationship, close. He was traveling around with you, sort of seeing, what you're doing out there on the road and, what kind of impact you're having on people's lives. And, these days, when I see a father son or a mother daughter or a family unit, having a real, true, genuine relationship, that's so out of the ordinary these days. I just cannot help but take notice of it. So, anyway, I applaud you for being the father that you are. Steve, I don't know anybody better than Steve Cook to introduce himself. So, Steve, introduce yourself.
I will. So let me just start out. I have a real estate investing background. I'm here really today to share about Lifeonaire, but I started flipping houses back in 1998. And, I was a person who had come through, with this entrepreneurial spirit, starting many different types of businesses. And I failed countless times. And, the last business that I failed in was a restaurant business. And I learned quickly that when you buy a restaurant, it's not an investment. It's not a business. You're buying jobs. And I feel like I bought two full-time jobs, and I was lucky if I could pay myself for one when I bought that restaurant. But from there, I found myself into real estate investing and started out flipping houses. And I was very, very fortunate and blessed to have had sort of a rags to riches story where I went from having nothing. My first 2 years in the business, I had flipped 105 houses. And needless to say, that caught the attention of a lot of people all across the country. And people started emailing me, they started calling me, they started flying into Baltimore where I was investing to pick my brain and to try to learn what it was that I was doing. And quickly, I found myself just being inundated with helping other people to be successful as flippers. And consequently, I ended up writing my first book or real estate investing course. It was called Wholesaling for Quick Cash. And that course was something that I did in an attempt to try to answer everybody's questions and not have to, do it all over telephone or not have to do it all via email. I was trying to save time. And that only resulted in more people asking me questions. And so I found myself in the educational realm. I developed a website called flippinghomes.com, which quickly became one of the largest investing websites in the country. But I will tell you, I have done tons and tons of real estate investing. I have helped many people to become successful as a real estate investor. But there was one thing that I started to see that I did not like too much. And what that was I started seeing people who were becoming successful in business, but their marriages were being compromised, their families were becoming dysfunctional. And that started to break my heart because their families were paying the price for the success in the business. So many people were so committed to being successful in business and they were doing whatever it took that they were sacrificing the things that were most important. And the funny thing was this: whenever I asked people, why do you want to become successful, they would tell me that they wanted to provide more for their families. They wanted to live a better life. But the exact opposite was happening with so many of them. And that's when I sort of shifted gears and started changing, and I started moving into Lifeonaire. And that was teaching people how to live and experience an abundant life. And so that's where I'm at today, and ended up in this area.
So, how'd you come up with the name Lifeonaire?
Well, I cannot take credit for it. I was literally, one week, I was approached by a couple of men who were asking me to teach them how to become a millionaire. And by this time, I was starting to dig deeper. And I asked them, well, why? Why do you want to become a millionaire? And both of these men told me so that they could be a better father and a better husband. And I said to them, I said, guys, you don't need $1 million to be a better father or a better husband. You just need to do the things that good fathers and good husbands do. And both of them argued with me. They told me, Steve, you don't understand. And I said, look, I got kids. I understand. I know I'm married. I have kids. I get it. I'm in the same boat as you guys. And no amount of money can make me a better father or husband. I still have to do what good fathers and husbands do. So the following week, I was at a Young Life Christian camp. And my wife and I were there just observing the camp. We were donors, and so they invited us out. And I was having my quiet time down by the lake, just praying about these two men. And I said, Lord, what is it about this word millionaire that just grips the hearts and lives of so many people? And I just felt God in that very moment speak to me and say, well, what they really want to be is a lifeonaire. They want to live an abundant life. And I had to like look up, and I said, can you spell that for me? And just sat there and wrote that word lifeonaire out. And I went and I bought the domain name the next week. That was August of 2003. And that word Lifeonaire has been a blessing and a burden to me every day ever since that time. That I just felt like this was something that God was asking me to bring to the world.
So, over these years, you have grown Lifeonaire to quite a large community of people, right?
Yeah, we have been very, very blessed that we've been able to just touch countless amounts of people and just watch their lives changed as we help them to sort of build their business for life. Is one of the things that we say. So often we come across people, they are working too much, yet they might have success. The business might be successful, but we help people to work less, to make more, and to live more, and to focus on the reasons why they really got into business in the first place. So yeah, it has grown into a rather large community, and the book, the Lifeonaire book, has just continued to keep on increasing in sales. And we don't really do any marketing of the book, but it just goes and goes and goes, and most of that is all word of mouth because of how impactful it is for people.
I know you have a mastermind group. I know you have Lifeonaire members. And of course, the book would break this down. But break it down for me, 30,000-foot view. Really, what is the process? What are the steps? What are the exercises that you have people go through that helps them or creates the life that they want? In other words, do you start with, okay, here's what my perfect day would look like? Do you start with, well, here's the goals I'd like to enjoy? I mean, there's so many different ways that, that process could look of how do I actually build the life that I want? And then in addition to that, I meet people all the time, Steve, that they don't even know what they want. I
That
mean,
is exactly the case.
they know they want to be happy. They know they want to have joy. They know they want to have peace. They know they want to have contentment. But as far as how that fulfillment comes about, they have nowhere, they don't even know where to start. So what is the Lifeonaire? Let's say I'm a beginner. Let's say I'm a beginner Lifeonaire member. How does the process start on me even figuring out how to create the life I want when I don't even know what I want?
It's a great question, and that was the thing that where I started with all of this was it starts out with having a vision for your life. I would sit there, and when I get in front of a room and I would actually speak to people about this, I would say that when I speak to a room of 100 people, if we're lucky, there's only one person in the room who actually knows what they want their life to look like. And I said, right now, every one of you thinks that that person is you. But I'm going to tell you right now, what most of you are thinking is, what do you want your balance sheet to look like? Or how much passive income do you want to have? Or how big do you want your 401k to be? But most of you don't have a clue of what it is that you actually want out of life. And the fact of the matter is this: most people have never taken the time to sit down and really think about what they want out of life. And so, what we do, we actually call it our Get a Life retreat. And this is a 3-day event where we bring people in, and we highly recommend that people actually come to the live event. They can do it with a home study course, but most people are so inundated with what's going on in their life right now that they can't pull themselves away enough to really take the time to contemplate this. But at an event, they can sit there and really dedicate the time to invest into themselves and to plan, what is it that I want my life to look like. Now we take them through a process of discovering what their values are, and going back to, key points in their life of things that brought them tremendous joy and excitement, and we help them to craft a unique vision for them. That's not one that we write for them, it's one that they write, the life that they desire to live. And once they have that, we begin to start helping them to create their business, to tweak their business, to, or their careers to fit the life that they want to live. So instead of them using their life to serve their business, they create a business that actually serves their life and helps them to live the way that they want to live. And so the 30,000 foot view is really starting with knowing what it is that you want and creating a vision for your life. And once that process starts, it's amazing to see what really happens. We make this one comment often that people will spend more time planning a weekend getaway or a party than they do their lives. And their life lasts many decades, yet that party lasts a day sometimes. And they will spend weeks and weeks planning that party, but they won't take just a little bit of time to sit down and plan out what their life is going to look like. And when they do, incredible things happen.
If I have a significant other or I have a spouse, does this process work a lot better when the couple is doing this together, or not necessarily?
It happens when they do it together, but however, when we actually have people come to the event, we want them to pursue it individually first, because couples get to know something about each other when they go through that process. And as they start digging deep and learning themselves who they are and what it is that they really want and desire out of life, they're creating their own unique vision. And then together as a couple, that's when we have you come together to actually make your visions merge and meld together. And sometimes we have couples who come in and their initial response is, he wants to live a completely different life than me, and I want things different than him. Maybe we weren't supposed to be together in the first place. And I'm like, no, 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 that's not the case at all. And let's talk about that. Let me show you how your visions actually come together. There's much more in common than what you think. And so one of the things that has really started to become popular within the Lifeonaire community is people started out with their individual visions, and now couples are starting to write visions together. And they're now writing visions for parenting, they're writing visions for their marriage, and they're starting to really take the time to get on the same page and create this written vision together of what they want their lives to look like. And I wasn't even going to bring this up, but my wife and I just recently wrote another book called Transform Your Marriage. And it's intended to be a self guided vision retreat for a couple where you could go away for the weekend. And as a couple, we walk you through the process of developing a vision together. And that's a relatively new product. It hasn't been out long at all, but it is something that has also been impacting couples in a very big way as they've been going through that process.
What's the difference between a vision and a goal, or a vision and goals? And what does a vision look like? What's an example of a vision?
So The difference between a vision and a goal is a vision is the big picture of where are you going. A goal is just one step along the way. It's just something that you're trying to get to that will draw you closer to the vision that you have for your life. And so, one of the things that we do say about vision, and I want to be really careful about, is that we don't want to see the vision as a destination because it's just part of the journey. It is a place that you're going to, but as you move closer and closer to your vision, you're growing and so does your vision. So there's never a destination. You never arrive. You never fully achieve your vision. But you might have this big vision that you think, oh, this is going to take me 10 years to accomplish. But we see people knocking it out of the park within a year or two once they get clear on what it is that they really want. And then they're now getting more in touch with who they are as they start to check some things off of their list as far as their vision is concerned. We see them typically go through this process. The first vision that many people write is about what do they want, and then the next thing, as they start to grow, it becomes what would they like to experience, and then we see them eventually start to write their visions about who do they want to become. And it starts becoming much more focused on then maybe going one more step further. How do I want to give back? And so as people progress through this process, they start to grow as an individual and they start have these feelings of I want to give back. I want to start changing other people's lives. And so the vision is sort of a guide. We call it it's sort of a roadmap of how do I get from where I am today to where I want to eventually be, and there's goals along the way. But that destination of where they're going, as they get closer to it and they get more clarity, the vision starts to expand.
Is part of the vision somebody's purpose, or is part of the vision someone deciding really what their purpose is, or is deciding what you think or you want your purpose to be? Is that really something different than the vision?
Sometimes it can vary. Ultimately, our hope and our goal, again, we don't write anyone's vision for them. We do not want to be the ones to do that. The way that we share it is some other or the world around you, sometimes your parents or your peers are the ones who have been writing your vision. You've been living the life that they want you to live. Now it's time for you to live the life that you're supposed to live. My hope as we take people through the process is that they discover what God wants for them to have. And so I'll just come right out and I'll say it. There are some people who come and that very first version of their vision is very shallow. It's all about themselves. It's all about the things that they want to accumulate. And what we do is we meet them right where they're at. We help them and we help them to develop a plan to accomplish all of that, because sometimes that's where we have to take them before they start to realize there's something more, there's something greater that they want. And through that process, it's our hope that as people go through this, that they start inquiring of God and asking him, what is it that you want from my life? And then their vision takes on a completely different look as they start to write it. But we never want to be the ones to tell people what their vision should look like, what their vision should say, because they've already been down that path where other people have been telling them this is the way you should live your life, and here's what you should be when you grow up, and this is the things you should do, and you should live in this part of town, and you should buy this, and consequently they wake up one day wondering where did life go, because I've been doing everything everybody's told me what to do, and I'm not feeling joy, I'm not feeling contentment, I feel like something's missing. What is it supposed to be? And we do everything we can to help them discover that and then create and design everything within their life to make that happen.
I have a dear friend. His name is Jeff, and he and I were in business together for quite a few years. And Jeff was very, very successful monetarily. He had all the toys. This goes back 15 years ago. He had all the toys. He had the boats. He had the airplane. He had the vacation home. All that kind of stuff that a lot of people use as benchmarks to define success materially. And he and I were on our way to lunch one day, and And he reiterated that to me. He says, Jay, he says, I've got this, I've got that. Um, he had a decent relationship with his wife, great relationship with his daughter, and he says, but what else is there? He says, I feel like something's missing. He says, I feel like there's a hole. It feels like there's what's next. He said, I work and I work and I work and I strive and I strive and I strive, and I still don't have the feeling of fulfillment. What would your answer be to someone that said something like that to you?
Well, again, I would not want to write their vision for them. So what I would do is I would share my own personal story with them. And the reality of the situation is I can 100% relate to where he's coming from. And I would tell him, hey, I did all of those things too. I pursued all the things that the world told me was the right thing to do. I worked hard. I accumulated. I had the nice house. I had the vacation properties. I had the toys. I built up my rental portfolio. I played by all of the rules, but something was missing. And the reality of the situation was the world was telling me what success was, but deep down inside, what I wanted, and the reason why I was doing it in the first place, was that I wanted love, joy, peace. I wanted to have relationships. And instead of pursuing relationships, I was pursuing money and things in hopes that one day I would be able to experience those relationships. But the fact of the matter was, I was working so hard, I didn't have the time to invest into relationships. And so I came to realize that all of those things were just actually getting in the way. And once I decided to start designing my business and designing the way that I was making money in such a way that it gave me the margin and the time that I needed to live and experience the life that I wanted to, I came to realize that real wealth was having the time to experience the things that were important to me, not working so much to have more money in hopes that someday I'd be able to experience those things. I wanted those things today, not some point in the future. And I think that so much of what we do in this country, it's about working and working and working for decades in hopes that one day I can be free, when the reality is we can experience that freedom today, but it's a choice that we have to make. And we can experience that love, joy, peace. We can experience relationships right now. We don't have to wait till someday when it might be too late. So I would let them know that, I would also quantify or qualify it this way, because many people misinterpret some of the things that I say. I say there is absolutely nothing wrong with owning nice things, but there is something wrong when those nice things own you. And that's where I found myself. I found myself having the world. I had money. I had the nice houses. I had all the toys. But those toys and that lifestyle owned me and controlled me. And I had to give my life to it. And consequently, I was taking it away from the things that were most important to me. And so I would communicate it that way and then ask him, well, what is it that you're really looking for? What is it that you really want?
If you are listening to this interview and it's resonating with you, and you can think of someone in addition to yourself that could really benefit from this conversation, be sure and share this episode with a family, a friend, someone that that sort of is on the rat race, going around in circles and really not getting the contentment and the joy and the peace in their life. Be sure and share this episode right now while we're doing this interview. Um, Steve, what would you say are some of the adjectives, or what's some of the feedback that you've heard from attendees at your Lifeonaire event as to how people feel differently by the time they get to the end of the event?
Uh, Honestly, most people can't put it into words, and that's one of the things that they say. They want to say that it's life changing, but that sounds so cliche, that it's life changing, because everybody says that what they do is a life changing experience. But the reality of the situation is people walk out of our meetings with hope. They walk out of there with a clarity that they have never really experienced before. When when people take that next step and they actually start participating in the mastermind, which you had brought up earlier, it has been described in many different ways that, it's the family reunion that you want to go to. It is the people who you want to surround yourself with, because even though they might know the worst of you, they love you where you're at. And they, instead of putting you down, they come alongside of you to help you become the person who you are intended to be. We have a very, very good culture within that. So when you actually show up at one of the events, there's no one there passing judgment. Most of the people who are there helping our new attendees and walking them through the event were once sitting in the exact same shoes that the attendees are sitting in, and they actually come alongside of you and help you walk through this process, which can be a very emotional process when you look back and you realize, I have been, making my family pay the price while I've been pursuing this success. I know I've been saying I've been doing it for them, but what they really want is me. What they really want is more of me. And and so our 100% goal is help people get that clarity, and they walk away with that clarity, and there's hope within that clarity. And they know that once they finally recognize what it is that they really want, they can start to take the steps to get there.
Since you created Life on Air, I would anticipate you've had hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have been impacted by this. I mean, not even including, the number of Life on Air books that have been sold. But with that, my guess is you have noticed a trend. You've noticed some commonalities as to how people have transformed or changed from the time they first came to your event until they, figured out what it is that they wanted their journey to look like. What are some of the commonalities that you have noticed or trends that you've noticed um, among men, among women, that really, what trend have you noticed that makes their life really look different?
Oh, I'll share just a couple of things. There's a lot of different things, but one of the things that we see is that couples start to look like they're dating again. They start to look like they're in high school again. And prior to, there was distance, there was a wall being built between them. She's bitter, he's working all the time. He's wondering, I'm working so hard for you, and I'm doing this all for you, and I'm providing us with a good life. And she's deep down inside thinking, well, what I really want is you. And then we draw them together. We're bringing them together as a team, and we help them to start figuring out, well, what is the right way to build a business? That we didn't build a business to make money. We built a business to live a better life. And so if that's the goal, what does a better life really mean? And let's design the business to give us that. Um, in addition to that, when people start getting further down the journey, and you might find this to be a little bit funny, but there's this term within our community that people refer to themselves as lazy lifeonaires. And they have gotten to the point where they work very little, they make more than they've ever made, and they have all the time in the world to experience life on their terms. And they sometimes wonder, should I be doing more? Do I need to do more? And one of the first things that I always have to tell people is, don't do anything yet. Give it 90 days, rest on it, let it, let this sit for a while before you jump in and start a new business, because that's the thing that most people want to do when they find themselves having a little bit of time. And I have to tell them, just take the break. And after that 90 days, they love it, and they start to say, you know what, I worked so hard to get here. I'm so grateful you told me to slow down, because now here's what I find myself doing. I'm serving people. I've got time for this person. I've got time for my family. I decided to take up coaching my kids. And you know what? My business is doing better than ever, and I'm making more than I've ever made. And so we see this happening repeatedly over and over and over again. And it's just because they're very clear on what they want. They're not willing to compromise their life when they make business decisions. They make business decisions that are going to be good for the business, but more importantly, it's a business that serves the life that they want to live, and it doesn't take away from their lifestyle.
So it sounds like when people attend your event, you sort of start with the end in mind, helping them determine, what do I really want my life to look like? What is it that's really going to give me the fulfillment? What's going to fulfill my purpose? And then, is it true you then sort of back into it? Well, this is my vision. This is what I want. Now, do you take them back to their business and say, well, how can I restructure, or how can you restructure your business that would support that vision that's been created? Is that the way the process works?
That is exactly the way it works. And so, the reality of the situation is every single person who decided to take the risk to go into business did so in hopes of having more freedom and living a better life. And what happens is most people, in order to be successful, give their life to their business. They sacrifice everything. And we live in a world that would sit there and pat somebody on the back and say, you made tremendous sacrifices. And, as a result, you're successful today. But the reason they got into business in the first place was they wanted freedom and to live a better life. And my feelings are, if that is the goal, and that's the reason why you went into business, that should be the goal of the business instead of just making a bunch of money and hoping one day the business will give your life back to you. It won't unless you're intentional about it. And so when you know exactly what it is your business is supposed to do, you can design it to give you the life that you want to live.
How does someone learn about, of course, I know they can get your book, Lifeonaire, on Amazon or whatever, but they can also get a downloadable preview ebook at your website, right?
Yes. So we want to get the book into people's hands. We're giving away free copies of the book. If you want a digital copy of it, you can just go to lifeonaire.com and download a copy of the book for free. If you prefer to hold it in your hand, you can go to Amazon and purchase one of the copies. You can also listen to it on Audible. And so those are three ways that you can get your hands on the book. We always recommend to everybody, look, don't spend money to come to a Lifeonaire event or to join coaching until you have first tested us out. In fact, we tell people, don't even think about joining our coaching program until you've been to the event and it's a good fit for you. Come to the event or read the book before you even go to the event. But we want to just take people through this process. If we're not a good fit, don't even bother coming to one of our events, but read the book first. And if it looks like it's something that resonates with you, take the next step at that point.
And I guess if they download the ebook, or they buy the book from Amazon, there'll be instructions in the book as to how they could register and actually participate in one of your events, right?
Yes, they can. And in addition to that, they can join our free community on Facebook. And through that, we communicate with everyone. And I'm in there posting every day. I'm in there answering questions and challenging people to live and experience the life that they were called to live.
That's awesome. How do they find, or what do they search for on Facebook to find your public Facebook group?
I think all you got to do is search for Lifeonaire and it's going to come up. And so it is a private group. You do have to request to get into it, but and the only thing we're doing is just having you answer one simple question to get you into the group, just to make sure that you're a real person.
In other words, no robots, no robots are allowed into the Lifeonaire private group.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. So I got another question, Steve. Do you practice yourself any daily habits that helps keep you on track for your vision once it's been determined?
Right now, today, I was sitting here just reworking my vision. What I do is I carry around a copy of my vision in my pocket. I stick one in my journal, I stick one in my Bible, I keep one in my pocket, and I use it as a bookmark for whatever book I'm reading at the time, so that I always have my vision in front of me. And whenever I have any free time, I'll sit down and I will read my vision. Because it's one thing to write it down, but it's another thing to keep ingraining it and to keep putting it in. And so our recommendation, I recommend, and as part we teach this as in the Get a Life event, to carry around a pocket vision that you can read at any time.
That's awesome. Steve, parting comments before we call it a wrap.
Well, I would just want to sit here and let everyone know that most every single person who is listening to this is a very smart and intelligent person. You're doing everything that you have been taught to live and experience the best life that you can. You're listening to this because you want to live and experience a better life. But the reason why many people find themselves not getting there is because the world has said that success is found in making more money. I don't deny that, but the real goal that you should be pursuing is life. Money is just a tool to help you live and experience that life, and you need to put life first. And I want to just encourage all of you, stop living the life that everybody else is telling you to live. Get control of that for yourself, make it happen, and live and experience an abundant life.
So if this podcast and show has resonated with you, then be sure to get right on over to www.life, L-I-F-E, onaire, ONAIRE.com. It rhymes with millionaire, but pronounced Lifeonaire. Again, that's www.lifeonaire.com. Steve, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jay, for having me. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it. Another episode. My name is Jay Conner of the Private Money Authority. We really appreciate the likes, the shares, the reviews. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and click that bell so you don't miss out on any of the other future amazing shows and amazing guests that we have right here. Again, as I said before, if this show has resonated with you, you would like a better life yourself, you know, a friend, a family member, a business colleague, an entrepreneur that is on the rat race, that is on the hamster, churning and is going around in circles, be sure and share this episode so it can possibly make a difference in their life. This is to taking your business and your personal life to the next level. And we'll see you right here on the next show. All right, Steve, that was a wonderful show and a great interview.
Well, thank you so much. I had a lot of fun doing it. I love sharing the message, and I could share so much more. If you ever wanted me back again, I'd love to do it if it helps you out.
Well, I would love to have you back. I'd love to have you back. So we're actually still live. We're still broadcasting on YouTube and live stream. So Facebook. So everybody gets to see behind the scenes the actual introduction that is put on iTunes. Chad Watson just typed in the chat. Steve, do you still teach real estate at the events?
I do not teach real estate any longer. There are many, many, many great real estate investing educators out there. I am still an active real estate investor, but admittedly, I focus on what works for me. And I'm not up to date on all the new things that everybody is doing. But I can look on my board right now, and I am in the midst of at least a dozen real estate deals at the moment. But I focus mostly on new construction. We do not do the teaching ourselves. We leave that to other people, and we help people to design a better business through Lifeonaire, regardless of what type of investing they do.
Excellent. All right, so Sharub, I'm going to do the intro for Upfront in 3, 2, 1. Well, my guest today is unlike any other guest that I've had on the show. Now, he's got a ton of real estate investing experience. When he started out, he flipped in his first year and a half 110 houses. He actually created the website flippinghouses.com, but that is not his focus today, even though he is still a very, very active real estate investor. You see, my guest kept hearing from friends, colleagues, family members, and even experienced himself. He was successful beyond measure when it became talking about material things, all the toys, but he was working and working and working, from morning to night and not really enjoying life, not really enjoying and having determined what purpose is, not really knowing what he wanted his life to look like. So my guest set out on a journey to creating his own vision for what he wanted his life to look like. And then everybody else started asking him, how in the world did you create this life, a better life, to where you're not like a hamster going around in circles all day with your hair on fire, but you're living the life you want to with the business to support it? And so with that, I'm so excited to have my guest join me today. And I promise you, by the end of this show, you will be a different person and you will know how to create and find out how to create a better life for you with joy, contentment, and peace.